Our guest this episode has sales in her blood. Her father was an owner broker of a real estate agency. Her mother was a top 10% real estate agent in that same agency. And her younger brother is an account executive. It's a little wonder that she has a passion for helping companies transform their sales. Her company, the Sales Acceleration Group, works with small to mid-sized SaaS companies to grow their revenue. Her company provides sales training, fractional sales leadership, and sales process execution. She's a speaker, trainer, and author of the book, Sell Your Way In. Please welcome to the podcast, Christy Jones.
Welcome to the Engaging Personalities Podcast. I'm Anders Belanger, founder and CEO of Engagify, where we're on a mission to rehumanize business through engagement. We believe that we can all be more successful if we can command attention and deepen connection. So stick around to the end of the show and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest on a future episode. So let's get ready to engage.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to kind of dig in right away. First off, how old were you when you knew you were going to go into sales? Like seemed predetermined by your lineage, if you will. But how did that come about?
I don't know that I ever had a aha moment, if you will, but I do affectionately say that my brother and I got our MBA at the kitchen table. But because of the business that my parents were jointly in, our conversations revolved around out-of-town buyers, sellers, listings, commission checks, and the like. So it isn't any surprise that my brother followed in my mother's footsteps as an individual contributor, and I followed in my father's as a sales leader. So, but I think my first sales job, past the babysitting gigs, was my favorite sales job. Just to this day, is waiting tables. So only job on the planet where you get immediate feedback on your performance, and it was perfect for me. So you competed with yourself every shift to see if you could earn more money than the last. And every time you went to the table after it had cleared and the money was left, that was your grade card.
That's such a great example. I mean, I like the idea that we're all selling all the time, right?
Correct.
This idea that we're selling ideas. So, you want to pick a restaurant with your significant other, you're trying to sell, your option, there's all different types of examples, but that immediate feedback, I mean, that is something that I treasure because I have a background in performance as a magician. So, you say a joke, it worked or not. People clapped at the end. People in a lot of jobs and a lot of areas don't get that pat on the back, or if they do, it's like, halfway through the year or once a year.
Right.
To be able to hone your skills like that, and again, and it's even the reward is. Well, it's monetary, so it was very
tangible.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, and if I don't know if you can answer this, but what were some of the little tweaks that you might have discovered? Did you have any ahas, early on when you were dealing with people that really increased your tips?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think I tried to be trustworthy. So if a dish, if I tasted the dish and I didn't think it was great, I might say that dish wasn't really great. I wasn't feeling it. And I truly appreciate that. I was at a restaurant just 2 nights ago where I was excited about the ahi tuna tostada special, and she said it's really small. Like, I don't know how hungry you are, but it's really small. Yeah. So I asked her to give me a few more minutes, and she came back and I said, I'm still sticking with it. Like, I feel good about it. I'm going for it. But I appreciated that, right? Because it made me stop to pause, to rethink. And I was good about doing that as well. So I did well with, again, upsell. So we had a lot of great side dishes. So I did a lot of upsell. But really, we had specials every night. And so knowing what those were, again, I say there's so many similarities. So product knowledge. So, which salads had nuts in them. I always say territory mattered, even in waiting tables, because your section, I'm so old that we had smoking section and non-smoking section. So, relationship with your coworkers mattered, because the better shifts and the better stations and sections went to those who were nice to the management team and who, maybe buttered up to the management team. So yeah, I think for sure, persuasion techniques, no doubt about it. And then I think, I have a motto that I didn't have back then, but I do today, which is do the right things and the right things will happen. And so I think part of doing the right things is knowing when to say no to somebody and saying, I don't think this is a good idea for you, or I don't think you're a fit for this. And I think that will come back to you. It may not come, you may lose that sale, but if you've done the right thing And that is, when you stick to the authenticity and the, integrity around that, that always comes back to reward you.
Yeah, integrity was the word that came up for me just before you said that, because the idea that you are doing right by them,
Mm-hmm.
and where sales sometimes gets that scummy, slimy thing
Yep.
is forcing people into a sale that's not good for them, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
not a good fit, and then there's regret and remorse and all kinds of things attached to it. And so,
Correct.
um,
Yep.
yeah, I
Builds
love it.
trust.
It's almost like you could write a whole book on, waiting tables and sales in a sense, because
I
you really
actually wrote
do
a
have a.
keynote on it.
Oh, did you? Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
One of the keynotes I wrote, I did it, and I wrote it about the part of it, like a beginning
Yeah.
chunk of it was the lesson, the
Yeah.
similarities and the lessons learned just by 6 years of waiting tables through high school and college, and how that really did probably, it was an astute
Yeah.
question of you to ask, but how it really did probably shape how I sold and led going forward.
Well, that's good, because when I asked the question, I'm like, "What did you learn?" I was kind of like, didn't want to put you on the spot, and then you went off on it, and I was like, "Whoa, okay,
I may have written
this
two or
is
three
thought out."
pages on the topic. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, well, very cool. So now you're the author of the book "Sell Your Way In." Now,
Mhm.
what do you mean by "sell your way in"? Like, because when I hear that, I mean, it's a sales book, obviously,
It
but
is. Yes.
what is sell? What does that mean? If you were to kind of sum that up.
Yeah, I actually say it's a personal development book for sales professionals. So
Okay.
I didn't want to write a how-to book. I know there's plenty of people out there doing it. And I'm not even sure I would be the best person to teach you how to do something specific. But I really wanted people to be able to own their own income in their life. And so selling your way in is all about being able to use a profession where you have variable income and you can control some of what you make, and using that to build the life that you really want to lead. There are a lot of
Mm.
jobs out there with a set income. And this one is not. Sales is not a job that has a set income. So, I always say there are jobs with a set income and jobs where you set your own income, and it's a choice. And those of us who've chosen to go into the sales profession have the ability to set our own income as opposed to having it set for us.
Yeah, and that's a different mindset completely, right? Like, I
Yep.
just personally, I did magic for, like family events and festivals when I was a kid, and, worked my way. So I've always worked for myself. So I don't really
Mhm.
have that other
Yeah.
way of thinking.
Perspective. Hmm.
Yeah. And I do remember one time having a conversation with my doctor, and it was probably in like September or October. And she said, like, "How far are you booked out?" And I said, "Well, probably end of December, like, because the Christmas shows." And she's
Hmm.
like, "I couldn't live like that." Like, that kind of that uncertainty,
Yep. That's right.
so, is that something that you deal with in the book a little bit? Because I mean, there's no, you know, ceiling to what you can do,
Mhm.
but at the same point, there are, risks that come with that.
Yeah, and actually I do talk about that. I think one of the reasons why I wrote the book is I see a lot of sales professionals that I believe are in the wrong role. So I
Mm,
say, they're selling the wrong thing in the wrong industry to the wrong people, working for the wrong company and perhaps the wrong sales leader. And so
okay.
I think one of the things that happens with our profession is, and there was a book that was written by this title. So this is not my unique idea, but the accidental salesperson. And, the majority of sales professionals did not intend to be in sales. I use this little story I'm about to tell you jokingly, but here you are a senior in college and you're at the Thanksgiving table and Uncle George is like, "Hey, so what do you think you're going to do when you graduate?" And you're like, "I don't know." Like, you should go into sales. Like, you would be great in insurance sales. Right. And so like somebody plants a thought, right, in us. And then we go, well, maybe I should go into sales. Maybe I am an extrovert. I am good with, this is my favorite. I'm good
Mhm.
with people. I can talk a lot. And so we get into a sales role that may not be the right sales role for us, which by the way means you're not going to make the income that you could. You're leaving lifetime money on the table. But there's a sales role for everyone, but depending on a lot of things, including what you mentioned, your risk profile. So, if you're happy and you're, your sales superpower and your sales secret weapon, and you've put yourself in the right industry, selling the right product to the right type of companies and working for the right company and the right boss, all of those things, that's going to leverage your skill set and put you in a better position to reach the top 10%, which means you'll be a top 10% earner. And so I think, and then the other thing that we do is I don't think we're proactive about our career. And I think, lots of people think they have a career. I'm not sure that everybody in sales thinks they have a career. I think some people think they have a job or they're in a
Mm,
profession. but we're not
Mhm.
intentional about what I call step changes. I talk about this in the book. So, when should you leave your job? And then instead of, and here's when most people leave their job: when the recruiter calls and says, boy, do I got a deal for you. I've been looking around LinkedIn and your profile is perfect for my client and the job they're trying to fill. That's reactive. We're basically handing
Yeah.
over our again, income and our career to somebody who doesn't know us and just found us on LinkedIn, as opposed to doing what most sales professionals have been taught to do, which is figure out your ICP, figure out your persona,
Yeah.
build a list of those people, and proactively go after people that you say they should want to buy what I'm selling. But we don't do the same thing with ourselves, which is so bizarre to me. So I wrote
That
a
is
book about
wild. Yeah, well, I'm glad you did, because it needs to be addressed apparently. Because I mean, it reminds me a little bit of what is this saying? Like um the cobbler's kids go
never have
shoeless,
any right, never
right?
have
Or
any shoes,
whatever, go
right?
barefoot or
Yep,
whatever it
yep,
is, right?
yep.
Where we don't look at our own life like we plan a vacation better than we plan our retirement, or these kind of things that you should be on all over it, but we're
Yes.
not.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so, yeah, I think the first section of the book, there's three sections of the book. And the first section is you must know yourself before you get to know the prospect. And
mm,
so I think the reason why people are not getting to the top 10%, in the world that I live in the SaaS software space, HubSpot just recently released a stat that was terrifying. That was about 48% of sales professionals across the globe are hitting quota. And I think a lot of that reason, there's a lot of reasons for that. Not all we'd have time for in the short time we're going to be together today. But one of them is people are not, they don't even understand all of the sales roles that are out there. They don't know whether they should be 100% commission, whether they should be doing outside or inside sales, whether they should be selling enterprise deals or SMB or mid-market, whether they should be selling a product or a service. Like, no one's sitting down, and there's no, that we're not giving a sales aptitude test for that, right? To say, well,
yeah.
like, if you want to know the best sales role for you, fill out this 3-page questionnaire and it'll tell you exactly what you should be doing. And we're not doing that. And we're also not mentoring. Like, as a
Mhm.
sales leader myself, I say there are 4 job roles with that: leader, manager, coach, and mentor. And I don't think we're also, as sales leaders, doing enough mentoring. I call it my mommy speech. So I do this from time to time. And I say to people, like, I think the reason you're struggling is you're in the wrong role.
Yeah.
Or, you need to be face to face. Like, you do so much better than face to face than over the phone. So,
Right.
I try to help guide people. Again, this goes back to doing the right things. I try to help guide people into the role where I say, hey, I think, like, there's a assessment out there called the cultural index, and I'm a certified giver of that assessment, and lots of my clients have used it. And this is true. Like, your traits are set by 10 years of age. And asking someone to do something that is outside of their trait set or their comfort zone,
They're not wired to do.
they're
Yeah.
not wired to do it. They can do it for up to 18 months. And then something bad's going to happen. They're either going to self-sabotage, they're going to suck, right? And then they're going to get fired. And so, like, I feel like this is our responsibility as sales leaders to help people figure out the right role for them. But I
Yeah.
also say hashtag own your own shit. And, you shouldn't just be taking a job because the recruiter called. Like, if this is really your profession and your career, then you need to be accountable for that. You need to have an intentional strategy about your
Mhm.
career. And so, I put this book out there to help people stop and think, like, am I really even in the right role? Like, can I even maximize my lifetime earning by selling this in this industry with this company?
Yeah. I find your perspective fascinating because when I think about sales, I almost think, hey, it doesn't matter what you sell. Sales is sales, right? And you kind of just broke that paradigm for me, because it's kind of like, well, look at all the different ways you can slice and dice it, and then have skill sets either be a match or a fit or not,
Mhm.
for those different areas. And I think you're right about that accidental salesperson piece. Like, there's so many of them fall into sales and go
Yep.
from one company to another, and no one is that guidance. Well, you are the guidance counselor
Yep.
for salespeople, right? That
Yep.
because sales is not, I don't want to say regulated, but not it's not like it is a profession. Selling is a profession, but we don't go to
Yep.
school for it like you would, other professions like being a lawyer or a,
Yeah,
doctor,
there
dentist.
are 100 universities approximately in the United States that offer sales as a major. That is not
Really?
very many. Yeah, that's not very many. Some of them don't offer it as a major, but do have a certificate, have a sales certificate that you can get. But there are 100 universities that have sales as a major. And by the way, it's almost never out of the business school.
Really?
Almost a lot of times it's out of the education school.
Now,
Sometimes it's out of the liberal arts school, but it's
yeah,
very rarely out of the business school, which I don't understand.
what the heck? And what do you think the quality is of those programs? Like, if we were to just conjecture,
Mhm.
like,
Yeah,
is it
I'll
because,
conjecture with you because
yeah,
I've interviewed
yeah.
a few professors.
Oh,
So,
okay, okay. Tell
because I
me.
actually
Yeah,
think my book should be part of the curriculum as they
yeah,
get to their junior year and they're
yeah,
trying to decide. But what they're mostly teaching, the curriculum they're mostly teaching is the how to, and a lot of it revolves around the SDR position. So teaching college students how to be an SDR is their first job. But I
yeah,
said to the professors, but that assumes that they're hunters. But what if they're not? What if they're
yeah.
farmers? What if they want to be in sales and they're farmers? You're not teaching anything about customer success
No,
or implementation specialist or onboarding specialist or sales engineer. What if they're technically minded?
yeah.
And again, what about again 100% commission versus base plus commission versus, again, it was interesting because I interviewed 3 professors as I was writing the book because I'm like, I think this should be part of curriculum for those 100
Hmm.
universities. And over and over, I heard the same thing. Like nobody was thinking about anything but SDR, prospecting, farmer or hunter. And
Right.
so I thought,
It's
well,
just narrow-minded or like got the blinders on
yep,
and thinking about what is that, and that's typically your first role in
mhm,
sales, right?
it
Like
is.
it's not,
Yeah.
and so it's almost just a, you know, basically a feeder school, for SDRs. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
okay. Well, I'm learning a lot. I like when I bring people on the podcast and it's not what I thought it was going to be. So this is so cool. I want to
Excellent.
shift gears for a moment
Mhm,
and talk a little bit. And this is kind of with your sales leadership hat on,
mhm.
a revenue kickoff, right?
Yep,
And some people still call them sales kickoffs, and there's a
they
mix
do.
out there. I know because I
Mhm,
sometimes work at some of them myself.
mhm.
Uh, what what makes a good RKO, or what are mistakes we should avoid so we
Yeah.
don't go down that
Yeah, and
road?
I have stopped using the term SKO and I've switched to RKO, and you ran across a blog post, so you know that. But again, like anybody who's involved in revenue, which includes the marketing department, it may also include product. It may also include again account management, customer success. Anybody who is has a revenue generating role should be involved in that, right? Because we all need to be rowing together, and there are a lot of companies that still have a disconnect between sales and marketing, and there's no need for that, like in my opinion.
Mhm.
And by the way, like that sets you back. Like that is very unhealthy for your organization. And that's going to cause you to not make as much money as the organization could make. But I think it should be a lot of things. Like, I got an opportunity to do a keynote at an RKO in San Diego in January. The Crunch-based sales and revenue team came together. And they had a really nice blend. So they had, they did some product training. So they had, some new product rollout, some product training. The marketing team talked about what they were going to be doing, rolling out the first part of the year. They brought in 2 or 3 clients and did a panel discussion
Oh, okay.
and had let the revenue team hear straight from the horse's mouth, the main contacts at those 3 clients about why they purchased, what the benefits are, how they're using them, use cases. And then, a keynote I think is important. And I also think just regular basic soft skills training. I'm on my soapbox right now that thanks to, the tech stack, AI, data, all of that fun stuff, which by the way is necessary. I'm still a data chick, but I think we've swung way far to the science of sales and we're losing the art of sales. And one
Amen.
thing I'm seeing over and over and over again as I walk into organizations is no one's teaching sales soft skills. They're not providing that type of training anymore. They're, letting you like, that everything's being data driven, and, automation driven, and and now we have, each sales professional is working with 5 tech software, part of their tech stack, 5 software platforms. And so that's a good, and then the other thing is like fun time, right? The thing I gathered about the team as I sat around and had breakfast and lunch with them on the days that I was speaking was they don't see each other but once a year anymore, right?
Yeah,
And so
they
there
need
are
that.
teammates they've never met. Yeah,
Yeah.
there are teammates they've never met. So they did a happy hour the first night, which was great. They did a luau one night. And then, there was just some time off. Like it was in San Diego. Some people had never been to San Diego. And so, they
Beautiful
had some
city.
free time to go walk by the water, take a stroll, rent a
Mhm.
bike, that kind of thing. So, I think a little team building, but also, but also just some downtime to enjoy. A lot of times you get somewhere that you've never been before. And, just having some time to spend with people that you don't get to spend time with, or even spending time by yourself. So I think I think there is a formula for it. And again, these are very structured and exhausting days. That's the other thing I guess
Yeah.
people should be aware of is, when breakfast starts at 8, because the first speaker is at 8:30 or 9. And then you've also got, requirements for dinner or happy hour or that night. I mean, those are 12 or 13-hour days. So I think building in a couple of hours at one afternoon for people to go hang by the pool or walk along
Yeah.
the water, or do something to kind of get some free time. And of course the clients aren't going to stop emailing or calling while you're at
Right.
your revenue kickoff.
Life
So
goes on. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think a lot of them, I think the ones that fail are the ones that just spend too much time with, presentation after presentation after presentation. It's not interactive. They're not getting time to build relationships with teammates. So I think those kind of things are, I'll be honest, those are probably the memories that people are going to walk away with. Right.
Yeah.
The conversation I had with a team member who lives across the country from me and I never get to see in person, or, hanging around a happy hour and talking to the product team whom I never get to see. Those are probably the memories that are being built.
And that's what they say about events. It's sometimes those hallway conversations
Right.
that are just so like you need to plan an event to bring everyone together. And then it's the mixing and the rubbing of shoulders where people can get real nuggets or,
Yep.
just to build the relationships they need. I want to rewind back just a little bit because there was something you said about the soft skills that we're not teaching the soft skills. And I mean, I'm seeing that too, because we work trade shows with a lot of technology companies. And oftentimes the booth staff are the
Mm-hmm.
SDR team that they
Yep.
brought on. But
Yep.
these SDR teams, some of them aren't even making phone calls anymore. It's all just like
That's
emails.
right.
They're just, market attack campaigns they're throwing out there. And,
Mm-hmm.
they don't know how to talk to people. Right.
That's right.
Like, and that's partly a generational thing. And all
That
kinds
is.
of things are happening. I
That's
don't want to
right.
blame generations, but
But
technology
yep.
and all of these
Yep.
changes, we're kind of losing that. I mean, and the reason we're at RKOs is we do presentation trainings, boost staff trainings, different engagement trainings for these companies at RKOs. So what are you seeing? Like, is training the answer, or where do you see the industry going from here? Because are we going to be in trouble at some point with people
Yes.
without soft skills? Yeah.
Yeah, because the people that we're not training today are the next generation of sales leaders. So we are in
Yeah.
trouble. And I'm calling it I'm calling it two things. I'm calling it sales leadership malpractice. And I'm also calling it that the art of sales is becoming an extinct skill.
Mm,
And I'm with you. Like I'm working with a team right now, and I start talking about. I think the first session we did was on ghosting. Like, how do we handle the ghoster?
yeah.
I started giving all these tips, and the leader raised her hand. They're like, 80% of our communication, or 85%, is over email. And I said, well, then tell me how you're building that relationship. And it's no wonder that
Yeah.
you're being ghosted, right?
Yeah.
And so it's
So
not just
detached, right? Like it's so detached. Email, there's not
yeah.
a person behind that, right?
Yeah,
So
and I don't and I've been saying since I can remember, like, we don't sell over email. Like, we don't sell anything over email. We really have to pick up the phone and do that. Like, it's, again, unless it's a, B2C, like,
yeah.
product led growth kind of product, we can't sell that over email. But I'm calling them the zillennials, and I know they hate me for that, but I'm gonna call them the zillennials. I just group the Z and the millennials together and call them the zillennials. But the zillennials, like, it's text talk, right?
Yeah.
And there's very little verbal communication amongst their peer group, right? And so even writing skills. So I said to them, I go, I tell people, I go, well, if you're going to be leaning heavily into email, which is like, okay, that's a strategy, then how do you determine if the zillennial coming out of college who wants the SDR job even has writing skills if they don't have an English or journalism major?
Right.
If they're a
Yeah.
sports marketing major, or they are whatever major, like, finance major, like, how do you even know? And so I've started, I said, if that's what you're going to do, and even if it's 50%, let's just say 50% email, 50% phone, I'm putting people through writing assignments,
Yeah.
and it's getting harder and harder. And so, that's what I'm saying. At some point, we're going to have to teach that generation professional writing skills, persuasion,
Right. Yeah. Like
not
it's
not
almost
just
like,
like verbal skills, but we're gonna have to teach them
yeah.
written skills.
Wow. It's like the sales training or the poor sales enablement departments are going to get like, they got
Oh yeah,
heaped up all these.
talk about job security.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sales enablement. Yeah, if you're not sure what you should do coming out of college, sales enablement is where
Yeah.
it's at.
That's right. You'll have lots of work to do and no end to it.
Yeah, but coaching, by the way, we mentioned training, and I don't want to
Yeah.
leave off coaching because I mentioned earlier on that like coach was part of your job. We're not doing enough call coaching. We're not. I mean, if you're going to spend 80% doing outbound emailing, cold outbound emailing, or
Yeah.
outbound emailing, or even as a customer success manager, the majority, I mean, the team I'm training is mostly customer success managers, and they're mostly communicating with their customers over email. Well, are we like we should be email coaching just like we're call coaching. We should
Yeah.
be reading a certain number of emails every week and providing feedback, just like we would if we were listening to a certain number of outbound calls every week. We're not doing that
Mhm.
either. So
Yeah.
not only are we not providing, I don't think, proper soft skills sales training, we're also not providing proper coaching.
Yeah.
And that's going to catch up to us.
Yeah. So sales apocalypse. That's what, no,
Sales
what do you call it?
apocalypse. Oh, I like it. So I'm calling it extinction,
That's
but
your
I
new
like,
book.
but yeah, but your fear and your FUD is bigger than my FUD. Your fear, uncertainty, and doubt that you're creating is much bigger than my FUD. But yes, sales, yeah, extinction,
Apocalypse?
apocalypse, whatever. Yeah, like, yeah, big time. I mean, and really because we, especially in my world and that SaaS world, oh, do we love to promote the top performer to sales leader and then not provide them any leadership, management,
Right.
coaching, or mentoring training. And if they have not been properly trained on the art of sales and sales soft skills, how
Yeah.
on earth are they going to train the next generation? They're not
You're
going to be
right.
able to do that.
Well,
And
and
then
some of them are unconsciously good at it. They became a top sales
that's
leader,
correct.
right? Or
That is
or
correct. No,
and there's
no.
could have been some training, but
That's
doesn't
right.
mean that they're a leader,
Yeah.
Doesn't.
And so when we talk about worrying about losing our sales job to AI, we're setting ourselves up for that failure, in my
Mhm.
opinion. By not
Mhm.
teaching those sales soft skills, then we'll have no choice but to rely on a bot to help us write copy and to what's the voicemail script and what's the live script look like, because
Right.
we're not going to have people who are going to be capable of doing that.
Right. Well, and we already know there are AI voices available, right? That can,
Hmm.
or AI videos and the voice. I mean, this maybe exist already. I don't know. I haven't seen it, but like voicemail drop of the mail merging someone's name with AI voice, right? Like you're just
Yep.
doing straight to
Yeah.
voicemail. Probably
Yeah.
exists.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, my company Engageify, and the people who are longtime listeners are going to go, oh, he's going to talk about the .ai again. Our website is .ai,
Hmm.
and the backstory is that's what was available, and I took it, but we have no artificial intelligence.
Hmm. Hmm.
Our AI stands for authentic interactions.
Ah, yeah.
And
I like that.
so, where I hear all of this, it's like, ooh, just like, it hurts me that
I
we're
know.
going down that road. And I think, you feel the same.
I
Uh,
do.
but it's like, I feel like the people who are going to be authentic, the people who are going to embrace these soft skills will be very unique. What was
Hmm.
at one time ordinary will become extraordinary when we're in the midst of this, gap in the soft skill future,
Yes.
what you're talking about. So I guess if anyone's, early in their journey of their sales career, look for Christie's book, Selling Your Way In, and tool up and train up, right? So
That's
that
right.
you're
Yeah. I mean,
able to
you have
go
to
there.
own that. If your sales leader does not provide that, that doesn't let you off the hook.
Yeah,
Like you have to
right.
own your own journey here.
Yeah, yeah. And I think some salespeople, you just kind of go with whatever system they got, and every company is going to be different. And there's companies without the sales enablement department. There's
Oh, that's
companies that
right.
are making it up as they go.
Yep.
What have you. So, and some of them are like, yeah, here's a lead list, knock yourself out, right? So there's like really runs the gamut in terms
It
of
does.
support, right? And that's another reason why they would want fractional sales leadership, I suppose. So
That might be one reason.
might be one of those things.
Yeah.
So people would bring you in, and how does that kind of work? That
Yeah.
did you come in and are the the chief revenue officer of sorts for companies that maybe aren't big enough to have that at that point. Am I
I
right with
do,
that?
yeah, I do 3 things actually. So one of the
Okay.
first things I do, for early stage startup companies is build out all the sales processes. So formalize, document, and build out all sales processes, including customize the CRM around that. So I say I'm a consultant who gets her hands dirty. So I don't just come in and give you the strategy and disappear on you.
Right.
I know that you need it built out. So building out the processes, including a playbook, including customizing the CRM, doing all of that. And then when that's done, I do a lot of what I call hiring help. So we're not a staffing company. I'm not a recruiter. We don't charge a percentage of base salary. We do charge. But I project manage the hiring process. I've been hiring hundreds and hundreds of sales reps for a long time. I know what a top 10 percenter looks like. I know that the things that they say in an interview that separate the 90 from the 10.
Right.
And so I have a lot of repeat business in this area where people hire me to do everything from the SDR to the CRO. And then from time to time, it's the smallest part of my business, but I do fractional at a very small scale. So 4 sales professionals or fewer, because I believe that at 5, they deserve a full-time sales leader.
Mm.
And then I do interim. So I've done, I you say I'll do anything for money apparently, because I'll do maternity leaves or paternity leaves. Or you fired your sales leader and you're out looking for your new one, but you need somebody to keep the boat afloat while you're not. So I do a lot of that. I do get a lot of those calls where they're
Yeah.
like, hey, so like, something went wrong and we're without a sales leader for a little bit of time. Can you come in and fill the gap? So, and I actually like doing the interim, because, really like, I'm not, I'm not going to go in and change, like, this is not change management. I'm not coming in and going to upset the
Right.
boat. I just got to keep the boat afloat and really like, and it, like people are really grateful. Like I like doing things where people really like me and are grateful, but they're like, oh, thank you for helping us while we're, in between whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't have to come in and change policy or commission structures or
Right.
plans. And, I'm not the bad guy. I don't have to come in and be the bad guy. I always like coming in to be the good guy.
You have to be very flexible to be able to do that because you're working with all
Yes.
different types of systems. Like that must be, I mean, I guess after you get
Mhm.
used to what the gig is, that it is
Yep.
going to be different. And it won't be maybe what you would recommend all the time, right? Like, cause you said, you're not
No.
there to change it. So is that
Mm-mm.
frustrating for you? Because, like you see it could be better and
Oh
you're
yeah.
trying to figure.
Yeah, and I think I can make small changes, right? Like I
Yeah.
try not to make big process changes, but I can say, "Hey, like let's do a training." Like nobody's going to stop me from doing a training session, on objection handling or negotiation skills or how to
Sure.
ask better discovery questions or how to make your demos more interactive. But I try not to make big sweeping like, I'm not going to come in and change the stages of your sales cycle,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like I'm not going to upset the apple cart like that. I'm going to but what normally happens is I clean up the pipeline in a way that terrifies management because normally I call them fantasy funnels. There's a lot of fantasy funnels out
A
there. So
lot of
yeah,
junk in the pipeline. Is that
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I do when I'm playing leader, I do a separate pipeline review meeting that I do one-on-one. So we do 2 meetings a week if you're working with me. And Monday we're gonna do that pipeline review meeting. And there's, again, like a fresh set of eyes, right? Is all
Yeah.
it takes to clean that pipeline up. And then all of a sudden it's anemic, and then all of a sudden you're in risk of not hitting your quota. So buyer beware when you bring me in. I'm the girl who always wants to make sure that you know exactly how much revenue you're going to get, and I don't
Right.
believe in fantasy funnels.
Yeah, I think I saw something on your website, Christy, about the you're very direct.
I
Like there's
am.
this like my communication style is very direct. So it's like there's your little caveat, your little warning. Before we work together, this is
Yes,
how it's
and I
going to
do
go
say
down.
that, and yeah, my brother years ago at some point said something to me that stuck, and so I kind of use this with people. He said, "You're really not for everyone." And I think he still loves me, and he that was supposed to be meant affectionately,
Right.
but honestly, he's right, and I do tell people that. Like, I do have a very direct communication style. If that is going to be a problem for you or your sales
Yeah.
team, it's not normally a problem for the executives, by the way.
Right.
But sometimes I walk into situations where people have not created an accountability culture.
Yeah.
And that
Well,
is something that I bring to the table. And so sometimes that's a big shock for teams.
yeah. Well, I think that kind of almost brings us full circle in the way that that's the integrity of
Yes,
you
that's right.
telling people what it's all about, and whether the the tuna tostadas is not very big. That wasn't you, but that was your
Yeah,
example. But
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so knowing what you're going to get, right? Because yeah, you need to have that
Setting
accountability.
proper
For sure.
expectations. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Christy, where can people reach out to you if they are in need of sales training, coaching, fractional
Yep.
sales leadership, all of that?
Yeah, I would love for your listeners to reach out to me on LinkedIn and just introduce themselves. And I always love their one takeaway that maybe they got from today's conversation.
Ooh,
So what was the one thing they walked away with? I would love to hear that. And then if you want to get the book, sellingyourwayin.com is where it's at. That's where you can get all the information about getting your hands on it.
beautiful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share your expertise, your philosophies, your perspectives on everything. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thanks. It was a very engaging conversation today.
Oh, that's good because that's what we're all about, right? Hey, thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in once again. And you know what to do. Stay engaged.
Thank you so much for listening to Engaging Personalities. If you believe this world needs more engagement and you're an industry leader or you have an interesting take on rehumanizing business, go to go.engagify.ai/podcast-guest to apply and come on the show. If you got something out of this interview, do you mind sharing it on your social media? Just grab a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on the socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show. Include the hashtag Engaging Personalities. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episode, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our website, engagify.ai, or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening and stay engaged.